Okay, a very good evening, guys. Can you all let me know if y'all can hear me and see a screen? Yes, all good. Can hear, can see. Yeah, right. Perfect. Perfect. Right. So today, guys, we're going to finish off unit number 3. So we're going to get started with the past papers of the last part of unit 3. So if you all remember, last part of unit 3 is about minimum prices, right? This price flow story. So that is the one that we're going to do today. And then with today, unit number 3 will be done. So after that, what I'll do is I will send you the unit 4 broken past papers, the ones broken into the focus areas. You all can start doing that. There will be a few extra sessions here and there. So try to do as soon as possible, try to do the questions and finish it off so that if I have an extra session, I can quickly do it and we can get things done. Right. So without wasting any time, let me share my screen and let's get started. Where are we? We are over here. Second. Okay. This is where we are. Okay, so hoping that you all will have taken some time to do the questions and come in terms of this. Did you all finish off the questions? I don't think there was a lot. No, MCQs, there were actually very bit, but there were a lot of essay question calculations were there. I think there were around 5, 6 essay question type of calculations that you all had to do. MCQs, I think there were very, very few. I think not even 10. So we'll discuss and we'll get going. You can give me answers on the chat box while we discuss. Give me 1 second. Let me put my iPad on to charge. This doesn't have a lot of battery. Okay. Right. You can do there's setting that I can do to get the messages like before the update. Is there a setting? Really? How do I do that? About the flyer. Which flyer is this? I'm not very sure. The one who told me there is a setting that I can get my messages back to the previous way. Just if you know more details about it, let me know. I'll try to see if I can do that. Uh, Sure, sure. You can drop me a text on WhatsApp. That would be a lot, very, very helpful. This new chat box is so annoying, right? When everyone texts me, it comes as different chats. So that's okay. Hopefully next class, then that's nice. Good news. Right. So we'll start, Lama. We'll start with the MCQs. Then we'll move on to the essay questions. The faster we do, the faster the class will finish. Now, so give me answers, Lama, for the MCQs. Let's discuss along the way. So starting with the first one. 2012 A-levels, question number 10. They're saying setting an effective price flow would do what? Consumer surplus and the producer surplus. What do you think? Lamai, first of all, tell me, this price flow or this minimum price is put to benefit who? Is it the consumer or the producer? How the benefit karane making? Who benefits? The consumer or the producer? It's the producer who benefits, right? So if you put a price flow, Lamai, to benefit the producer himself, ideally, Lamai, what should happen to producer surplus? Now you will set this in a minimum price, Lamai. You set the price above equilibrium, no? So what do you think should happen to producer surplus? Should it increase or should it decrease or should it remain the same? If you're putting a minimum price and they're also saying an effective minimum price, that means the producer is actually getting the benefit level. So therefore, the producer surplus should ideally increase. We'll go into more diagrams and all when we do the calculations. I'm not drawing a diagram here. But what do you think happens to consumer surplus? When you set the price above equilibrium, where the consumer has to now pay a higher price, and usually he ends up buying a lesser quantity, what happens to consumer surplus? Producer surplus, yes, goes up, but consumer surplus in most likely scenario, what starts to happen? It starts to come down. And then which one is your answer then, Laman? Which one gives you the correct answer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. So 4 says a decrease in consumer surplus and an increase in producer surplus, because producer is the one who should benefit ideally. in this, while the consumer actually ends up losing because he pays a higher price. So even if I draw the normal diagram lamai of a price flow, just to quickly show you. Okay. So government sets the price flow. Consumer surplus is this small yellow shaded triangle, and producer surplus lamai will become this entire thing here. This entire blue shaded area becomes producer surplus. Now, if the government further intervenes, let's say they purchase the excess supply or deficiency payment, then things can change a bit more. But here, since they're not mentioning anything like that, we can leave it at this level. Okay, done. Then going into the next one. Next one is the 2012 A-level question, question number 14. The recording of this lemma, it will not, if I find some free time, I will upload. Just don't drop me a text. I usually, after every past paper class, I get around 50 messages from different students asking for the recording. So just, I will put the recording, but there is no guarantee when I will put it. It might even come, let's say 3 months later. Depends on when I find some free time. I already am so cramped of a time. I'm doing the class for free. I am not regularly putting off the recording on YouTube because then it's taken for granted. So I want you to come to the live class and get the things done. Yes, if you miss the live session, at some point the recording will be there. It could even be 1 or 2 weeks before your exam. I will not guarantee you when the recording would be there. So don't drop me a text as well, especially on WhatsApp here. Zoom is okay. WhatsApp. Right. Coming into, you can drop me a text for any other reason, not for asking for the recording of the past paper class. The diagram below represents the market for agricultural good, and they're saying the government sets a minimum price of OP2 and buys up the surplus stock. So this is what? This is where the government puts the minimum price and purchases the excess supply. So they are asking you, what will be the farmer's total revenue? They are not asking you cost for the government. They're asking for the farmer's total revenue. What is the farmer's total revenue level? If the government sets this price at OP2, so they're setting a minimum price at this level. Okay. And what are they doing? They are purchasing the excess supply. So at this level, this is the quantity demanded. This is the quantity supplied. So this yellow shaded area is the excess supply. That is the cost to the government. Now, is this what they're asking you? Should you give the area of this yellow shaded one here? Is that what are they asking? Now, if they ask you, what is the total cost to the government? Yes, the yellow shaded one is correct. But they're not asking you that, no? They're asking you farmer's total revenue. So what is your farmer's total revenue? At this price, farmer sells one part to the consumer. This white shaded, the blank one, that is the consumer buys. The remaining, the government buys. So this entire red rectangle is government's total revenue. So what is that area, Can you all give me the letters? Answer number? Which one? 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 1. O, P2, K, Q3. So these are not hard ones. Meva nikang lamai are direct from the question itself. It's the question. It's directly there in your theory notes lamai. For Dakara, when they put a diagram, you get a bit scared. That's what happens. Okay, done. Then moving into lamai, see now 2013, 14 and all of that, they have 13, 14, all of that, there has not been an MCQ lamai. Hey, farmers revenue. Sorry, not the government's revenue, the farmers revenue. So that entire red rectangle there is the farmers or the producers' total revenue. Okay, right. Then 2017 question number 15. So 2013, 14, 15 and all, there has not been MCQs on minimum prices. We again come to 2017 now. 17 is saying, suppose the demand and supply for a competitive market is given, equations. If the government imposes a minimum price of 20, then this will lead to an excess demand and excess supply. Now, even without calculating anything, Lama, you can tell me, is there an excess demand or excess supply? Tell me. When you have a minimum price, what do you all get? Minimum price is set above equilibrium. As a result, suppliers are very motivated. They end up supplying a lot. Consumers buy less. So there will be an excess supply. So then, that way, Lama, I can cut off so many other answers. I can cut off answer 2, answer 3 and answer number 5 also. Now, excess supply of how much? Sorry, I think I've typed this wrong. It has to be equal to, not equal 10. First one has to be equal to 20 units. So we'll then calculate and see how much is the excess supply. How do you all calculate? Put this price of 20 to the demand and the supply equation and see. So how much is the quantity demanded at price 20? Quantity demand is 60 minus 2p. So then 60 minus 2 into 20. So that is 60 minus 40. Quantity demand is 20 units. Okay. Then we look at how much is the quantity supplied at price 20. Quantity supplied is, that is minus 20 plus 3p. So minus 20 plus 3 into 20. So how much is that? 3 into 20 is 60, minus 20 plus 60 is a 40. So quantity demanded is 20. Quantity supplied is 40. How much is your excess supply level? You have an excess supply of 20 units. By how much is your supply more? QS minus QD, excess supply. You have excess supply of 20 units. So then which one is your answer? Number 1 or 2? Answer number 1. Easy ones, no, may Baba type questions. It looks like a very hard area. Simple questions that they kept on asking. Then the next one, 2019 A levels. 19 A levels, they're asking you, Ayo, same thing. Setting an effective price flow would. What would it do? Same question they repeated. No, they copied and pasted it. Did they at least change the answer options? Not really. So this is the same thing that we had in the 2012 paper. What do? It decreases consumer surplus and increases producer surplus. So answer number 4. This is when the examiner gets lazy, like I say. So මේවා give very rare ළමයි, they will exactly repeat the same thing, but they might put that twist it around. Okay. Then the next one, 2020 A levels. Which one of the following is not a problem associated with a imposition of an effective price flow? Which one is not a problem? First one, a chronic means let's say a long term, maybe a serious excess supply in the market. Could that be a problem, Lamai? When you have a price flow, excess supply, is that a problem? Don't worry about the word chronic there, right? That is just given to make it a little complex and scare you all. Is that a problem? What do you all think? They're asking you which of this is not a problem. So I'm asking you, is the excess supply a problem? Yeah, when there is so much of supply, farmers can't sell what they bring. No? So this is a problem. Okay. Then the second one is saying the transfer of income from non-agricultural taxpayers to farmers. Now, what does this mean? Now, when the government sets a minimum price, remember, Lamai, there is a price support where the government purchases the excess supply or they provide a deficiency payment. So then, Lamai, where does the government get the money for that? To purchase the excess supply or to provide a deficiency payment? They get the money by taxing other people, no? By taxing people like you and me. Government taxes people like you and me, takes that money and gives it to the farmer, either as a deficiency payment or by purchasing the excess supply. Now, that is also a bit of a problem, bit of unfair. Now, we are hardly working, right? You all are now studying in this past paper class. You all are, day and night, you all are studying for A levels. You are getting a job. You go into a high income. Government takes a tax from you and gives it to the farmer. That's also a problem, Lama. That's what number 2 is about. The transfer of income from non-agricultural taxpayers to farmers. Because government is using our money to purchase that excess supply you provide the deficiency payment. That's also a problem. Then the third one, large subsidies paid by the government. That could also be a problem now. Now, because of this minimum price, right? Because of this minimum price, Lamai. Now, when you say subsidies, this is not that unit subsidy that we talk about. Now, government has to Lamai purchase that extra. That also is like a subsidy, no? Right? Even if you take, let's say, the deficiency payment kind of a thing, government has to give Nilamai for every unit. That also is kind of a problem, right? And then higher price for consumers, definitely. Now, when you have a minimum price, there's definitely a higher price for consumers. That's also a problem then. Then you end up with the last one, Lamai, the emergence of black markets. Will a black market get created, Lamai? In a minimum price situation. In a minimum price, you will not have a black market neither. A black market usually gets created when there is a shortage of goods, right? When you have a shortage of goods, remember in the maximum price story, matakada. In a maximum price, when you have this shortage of goods, the producers try to sell at a price higher than the maximum price. And that's a black market. They illegally they sell. But in this minimum price situation, Lama, you will not have that kind of a thing. Because there is an excess supply. There is so much. You don't have to may illegally sell at higher prices. There is nothing like that. Because there is so much supply, you might not even be able to sell it off. So there, that might be your answer, Lama. Which of the following is not a problem associated with a maximum price? Sorry, a minimum price. And that is one of the good questions that you all have had so far. So then remember, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all problems. How many of you have got this correct? 2020 question number 13. Yeah, got it correct. Good, nice. Then we move into the next one. Perfect, 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 perfect. Okay, we'll move into the next one. Then coming into my 2021. 2021 question number 12. Okay. The cost to the government of introducing a guaranteed minimum price for a commodity above the free market equilibrium will be the greatest if. Now, I'll give you a simple story. Now, if you all know these shapes, no, elastic, inelastic. Now, when is the excess supply high enough? The government is there. There will be a cost to the government when there is an excess supply, either to purchase it or maybe for a deficiency payment or something like that. Now, when do you think the excess supply is high? If you have inelastic demand and supply or elastic demand and supply? Think. I'll draw and show you. So let's say there is an inelastic demand, inelastic supply, right? Supply, demand, equilibrium price is 10. Government sets a minimum price at 12. Okay. Now, therefore, this amount is the excess supply. This is the excess supply. So government has to either buy up that excess supply or maybe provide like a deficiency payment. So if they buy up, this is their expenditure. Okay. Now, let's say, Lamai, same thing. If you have elastic demand and supply, let's say your demand is elastic, flat. Your supply is also elastic, flat. Supply, demand. Equilibrium price again is, let's say, 10. Same numbers I'm giving. Now, let's say government sets a minimum price of 12. Okay. Now, Lamai, what do you all think? Has the cost to the government gone up or gone down? What do you all think about the cost? When you have elastic demand and supply, now the excess supply is much high, no? Can you all see? The amount of excess supply that the government has to either buy or they have to maybe provide a deficiency payment for a lot of units now, Lama. So do you all realize now the government's expenditure is much higher? So the question is asking you the cost to the government of introducing a guaranteed, remember, Lamai, a guaranteed minimum price can, Lamai, the government is further intervening. Remember, what is the difference of a minimum price and a guaranteed price? For a minimum price, right? For a minimum price, Lamai, if the government has a price support system, then only it becomes, Lamai, a guaranteed price. So under a price support system, government has to ideally purchase the excess supply or they have to provide deficiency payment. If they do that, Tamai Lama, it's called a guaranteed price. Now, some people think minimum price and guaranteed price can accommodate. It's the same thing. It's not. Minimum price is where government just sets the price above equilibrium. But if they further support it with like a price support system, then only that's called a guaranteed price. So remember in your paper, somewhere in the question, if they say government has imposed a guaranteed price, then you should know some price support they are doing. They are either purchasing or they are providing a deficiency payment. One of that they have done. That's why it's called a guaranteed price. Be careful. So here the question says a guaranteed minimum price. That means they're talking about this. There is some sort of price support. And they are asking you the cost to the government of introducing this guaranteed minimum price will be the greatest? If what happens, Lamai? When will it be the greatest? Based on my explanation, based on my diagrams, when do you have it the greatest? Demand and supply are both price elastic. Demand and supply are both price inelastic. Demand is elastic, supply is inelastic. Demand is inelastic, supply is elastic. And demand and supply are both unitary. Now, if you draw the diagram and see, Lama, you can draw and see for all of this. Where do you think the excess supply will be the highest? If both of those are elastic, no? Like I have drawn in the second diagram here on the right. The second one, if both of these are elastic, both of these are flatter curves, the excess supply is a big amount. Then government has Lamai a big expenditure to spend. So which one is your answer then? Answer number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 1, no? Demand and supply are both price elastic. How many of you all got that right? That's also a good question. Something nicely good to deal with. Good. Then we go to the next one. 2021, there's another one. 21, well, they have asked two. So in 2021, they give you another one, question number 14. That tell you, suppose in a competitive market, the equilibrium price for a certain product is 50 per unit. Now the government intervenes into this market and a minimum price is set at 60 per unit. Okay. If the demand function is this, what would be the impact of the minimum price on consumer surplus? These type of questions are easy, but there's a lot of work to do, Lamai. So can you all first now impact on consumer surplus? Can Lamai, you have to calculate consumer surplus before, get the consumer surplus after, and then you have to see has it increased or decreased. So then let's do the calculation. I'll just draw a rough diagram. Can you all always Lamai, have a rough diagram for something? It's very easy then. Okay. Can you all tell me based on the demand, right? Now they have given us my demand equation and all of it. How much they're saying equilibrium price was 50. Okay. Guys, how much was the equilibrium quantity before? From the demand equation, you can get substitute the equilibrium price either to the demand or the supply equation. One of the two, you can get equilibrium quantity. They haven't given supply equation. Come on, 90. So if you substitute 240 minus 3 into 50. So 3 into 50 is 150. 240 minus 150 is 90. Correct. So then that's my equilibrium price. How much is my maximum demand price? Price when QD equals 0. This one. Price when QD equals 0. Remember, there is a shortcut also. Now, a shortcut is, now, ideally you can say 0 equals 240 minus 3P and you can find the P. Right? You will get 80. Or else for MCQs, you don't have to do all of it. You can use the shortcut. What's the shortcut I have taught you? The shortcut for MCQs is take the A component, divide it by the B component. Ignore all the positive, negative signs and all of it. A component is 240. B component is 3. So simply 240 divided by 3. You get 80. Now don't use that for essay questions. Essay questions, proper working, you will get marks. MCQs will no workings. So MCQs world, if you want to find the maximum demand price, simply A divided by B. Same thing with minimum supply price also. Ignore the positive negatives, just A divided by B. Okay. So then here, how much do we get? That is 80. Then how much Lamai is my consumer surplus before? That is this yellow shaded area. How much is that? CS before. That is half into base is 90, height is 80 minus 50. Here. 1350. Right? So I'm taking your numbers as my answer. 1350. Now we have to find my consumer surplus after this minimum price. So once the government comes and puts a minimum price, how much have they put? The price of 60. So when they put this minimum price of 60, minimum price, right, of 60, now which area is consumer surplus? Now you all know my consumer surplus become this small red triangle. Consumer surplus. So to find the area of this small red triangle, you need one more piece of information. What is that? You need to know at the price of 60, how much is the quantity demanded? Then only you can get the base of the triangle. So how much is that? Take the QD equation. QD equals 240 minus 3P when the price is 60. How much do we get? 240 minus 3 into 60. 3 into 60 is 180. 240 minus 180, you get 60. Absolutely right. Right. So now I have completed my diagram. Now I need to find that area of that small red triangle. So how do I find that? Half into base is 60. Height is 80 minus 60 now. How much do we get when we simplify? 600. Okay. Now, is my answer 600? So decrease by 600, can I say that? Completely wrong. It's not decreased by 600, it's decreased to 600. Maybe if your answer says, Lamai, it decreases to 600, then correct. Decreases by 600, how much does it decrease by? Earlier it is 1340, now it is 600. What is the change? It has decreased by or fallen by a 750. 1350 going to 600, that's a 750 change that. So it has decreased by 750. Now be very careful because sometimes all of y'all, you will do all of this working, right? You will find the consumer surplus before, consumer surplus after, you will do all of it and you will go and underline the wrong one. I've seen so many people like that. You go and underline, all of a sudden you see 600, 600 answer okay, 600. 600 is not the answer. So be careful, read the question. Okay, done. That's 21. Then we go into 2022. 2022 question number 14. The diagram shows market demand and supply curves for a commodity, for corn. Suppose that the government wants to introduce a minimum price. What should the government do? What should the government do to maintain an effective minimum price of OP2? Buy the quantity of what? Ayo. How much, what should they buy, Lamai? If they put a minimum price of this much, what is the quantity they should buy? They have to buy the quantity between Q1 and Q3. No? This is the quantity that they have to buy, the excess supply. Because the green shaded area will be bought by the consumer. The yellow shaded area is the excess supply that they will have to buy. So what is your answer then? Very easy one. It looks like a hard one, but not a simple thing they have asked. So buy the quantity Q1 to Q3. Done? Okay. Then we come to the next one, guys. I think in your tute, the heading is missing near the past paper year. I just noticed when making the slides. If you have the tute printed, if you have that tute that I sent, if you have it printed, can you add that this is the 2023 paper? This question number 12 and the question number 13 are from the 2023 paper. Okay. Guys, also one more thing, just to check. How many of you all are still having that? Remember, initially I told you have a file, get all the tutes printed, the right answers and all. Do you all still have that, or has that file gone for 6 now? Do you all keep nicely filing all your answers that you write? Yes. Everything that you write, all the papers that you do. Make sure you do that, Lama, because I'm telling you this, not right now, right? Right now, you might not see the big benefit of it. Again, coming closer to exams, right? Coming closer to A-levels now. And now when you look back, you will see, wow, I have done so much of questions. That confidence is enough, Lamai, for you to buy another gila, write the paper. Because anyway, 1 or 2 weeks before the exam, Lamai, poddakara bayak kena. You start feeling scared, right? You feel, I have studied so much. I have forgotten what I studied, right? Monawa haida, what would come, you get a little tense. That is natural, normal human being. But then the moment you see all the work that you have done, right? When you see all that past papers that you have done and filed and kept, when you see all that's the fast track work that you all would have done, all those books, all the work that you do. So look at all your work and you will see, wow, I have done so much of work. That will give you the confidence, Lamai, to, go and write that exam without getting scared. Right, never, you can have a book call, no problem. book or anything that you want, nicely have it. Just don't write in piece of papers and throw the paper away. Okay. This one. So 2023 then. Previous question number is this. So going into then 2023, the 23 paper is asking us if the government passes a effective minimum wage. Okay. They're asking a minimum wage and they're saying the resulting change in employment will be the smallest. What is this story? I would file the tute too. I mean, hey, if you have the printed tute, use it now. I think if you are in my revision class, you should have the printed tute. In my revision class, this printed tute I given. So you don't have to separate. If you're not a part of my revision class that we finished, revision class is over. If you were there, you would have had that printed tute. I have nothing. Try to get a printout because MCQs you can then mark it in that itself. So you can get that done. Price and purchase excess surplus and produce surplus will be big factor. Yes, correct. Okay. Now we'll look at this question. They are not talking about a minimum price. They are talking about a minimum wage. Now, what is a minimum wage? Now, a minimum price is put in the goods market. A minimum wage is put in the factor market. So, if you take factors of production, take labor. So here I'll just teach you how the labor market works. You have the demand for labor. Demand for labor. Right? That is from households. This is the supply of labor. Sorry, demand for labor is by business firms, right? By firms. Firms are the ones who demand for labor. Who supplies labor? Households supply labor. Then based on the demand and supply for labor, what do we have? We have not economic trend transference, right? You have the equilibrium wage. This is the equilibrium wage. So then what happens is now let's say the equilibrium wage is, let's say, 500 rupees a day. Now, if the government feels that this equilibrium wage is not enough, 500 rupees a day is not enough, no. So government comes and sets a minimum wage. So a minimum wage is like a minimum price in the goods market. In the goods market, when you put a minimum price, you put a minimum wage in the factor market. So you have the supply of the factor, you have the demand for the factor, and you have a minimum wage. That is, it's the exact same thing that they repeat over here. And then in the goods market, you have something called excess supply. That excess supply is what you call unemployment. Shall I explain the story to you? So let's say earlier, when the wage was, let's say, 500, the equilibrium quantity was 1000. That means there were 1000 people supplying labor, firms are demanding 1000. So 1000 people are willing to work, firms are also hiring 1000 people. But now when you set the minimum wage, what happens? Now the government is coming and saying, we are giving minimum wage 1000 rupees a day. What happens now? The households who are supplying labor, what will they do, Earlier who got only 500, now if they are getting 1000, now they are willing to supply much more labor. So supply of labor, quantity supply of labor increases. Now at the minimum wage of 1000, our households, they are the ones who are supplying. Let's say there is a quantity supplied of 1250. But what do you think firms do, When you set the minimum wage at 1000 rupees, do you think the firms will want to hire a lot of people? The firms will be like, you're too expensive. We are willing to hire only very little people. Now see the demand for labor. The demand for labor is now only 750 units. So quantity supplied is 1250. 1250 people are willing to work. But firms are demanding. Firms are hiring only 750 people. There is an excess supply of labor. Excess supply of labor of 500. What is that excess supply of labor called now? Excess supply of labor what is that called? 1250 people are willing to work, only 750 people are getting hired, 500 are excess. That is what you call unemployment. So that excess supply is what you call unemployment. If there is an excess supply of labor, that is called unemployment. So in this question, they are asking you, if the government passes an effective minimum wage, the resulting change in employment will be the smallest when there is what level? When do you think the amount of unemployment level will be the smallest level. Think of our previous question. Think of this same thinking that we did here. When will the excess supply be the smallest? When will the excess supply be the smallest level? If demand and supply is elastic or inelastic? When is the excess supply? Excess supply is unemployment again. So when is that unemployment the smallest? Unemployment is the smallest if your demand and supply is inelastic. Right. So if the demand for labor, right? If the demand for labor is elastic and the supply is also very inelastic, if both are inelastic, then it is much less. Now, what if there is a perfectly inelastic situation? We'll see. The question is saying, okay, we'll see. Demand for labor is elastic, demand for labor is unitary, demand for labor is inelastic, demand for labor is perfect elastic, supply of labor is elastic. Which one do you think, Lamai? Four answers talk about this. Which one do you think could be your answer? Four answers are about demand, that is what the business firms are hiring. One answer is about supply. Could be the inelastic one, right? When the demand for labor is inelastic, demand for labor is inelastic, practically think that means even if the price increase, even if there is a minimum wage, the quantity that the firms demand doesn't change much, right? The firms are still demanding almost the same amount of labor. Firms tamai demand for labor, remember? So earlier when the wage was 500, let's say they demanded 1,000 people. Now, if the wage goes to 1,000 rupees, now they must be demanding 950. Very small fall tamai. So when the demand for labor is inelastic, now if it is perfectly inelastic, even better. Then it will not change at all. But we don't have an answer like that. No? So if the demand for labor is inelastic, I'll just draw and show. We'll have a normal supply curve, right? We'll draw a very inelastic demand curve, right? A very steep curve like this. So let's say right now when the wages were 500 rupees, they were hiring 1,000 people, okay? Now when they put this minimum wage at, let's say, 1,000 rupees, now see, the demand for labor has, let's say, gone down only a very little. Firms were earlier hiring 1,000 people, now they're hiring 950. So the amount of people employed has fallen a very little. That's what they're asking you. They're asking you the resulting change in employment will be the smallest when. When it will be the smallest, it will be the smallest when the demand for your labor is inelastic. How many of you all got this right? That's a good question, Lamai. To put that, make a note and keep. Perfectly inelastic, it will not change at all, Lamai. Now, if the demand for labor is perfect, and I'll draw that tensor. Let's say demand for labor is perfectly inelastic like this. And then you have the supply. So then right now, let's say wages are 500, 1,000 people are bought and sold. Now, if you put the minimum price of 1,000, the demand is still the same. So then it will be zero. That is that. Effective maximum price, not a maximum price, a minimum price. If you have a minimum price, there will be unemployed. Okay. Good. So usually what happens is like this, Lamina, this story is not there in your syllabus. But if I am to go a little bit more in detail, now when you put a minimum price, yes, Lamai, the wages are higher, no? But along with this, what do you think happens to the labor, Lamai? Yes, they are willing to supply more, Thamai. But what do you think happens to labor productivity? When you all of a sudden start getting 1,000 rupees a day now, labor productivity will improve. No, now they are motivated, right? They are willing to work much harder. Yeah. So as a result, Lamai, the firm will also again indirectly benefit, even though the wages they pay are higher, because people become more productive. People are motivated now. All of a sudden, when you get 1,000 rupees a day, so then productivity will improve. Overall, for the firm, it would get a bit better. So this situation might not always play out in reality. If both perfectly elastic and inelastic options are there, then it will be perfectly inelastic, because perfectly elastic doesn't change it at all. Other stuff like maximum. Yeah, maximum wages ki lagak nahi lamai. Minimum wages tamai. You don't have anything called a maximum wage. Okay, right. So 12 is number 3. That's a good question. Maybe put a star and key. Then lamai coming to the last MCQ that we have. 2023 question number 13. They're asking you, assume the market demand for eggs is this and the supply is this. Suppose the government decides to have a deficiency payment scheme and a guaranteed price at 52. What is the cost of this program to the government? Oh, these are so much things to do, right? So we'll product draw will very easy when we draw and see this. Okay. So you have the demand, supply, at equilibrium price we don't really need. So I'll not go to calculate. Demand, supply. Government has put a minimum price of how much? Minimum price of 52. There is a minimum price. They are saying there is a deficiency payment. So deficiency payment can how does it work? Government tells the farmer to sell all your supply at whatever price the consumer is willing to pay. First, can you tell me at 52 rupees, how much is the quantity supplied? We'll first find that. QS is minus 10 plus P. So how much is the quantity supplied at 52? Minus 10 plus 52. How much do you get? Minus 10 plus P, no, P is 52. So you get 42, right? So they are supplying 42 million units. To buy this 42 million units, can you tell me what is the price the consumer will be willing to pay? That is the balance is the deficiency payment. So take the QD equation. For the QD to be 42, what should the price be? That's what we have to find. To buy 42 units, demand 42 units, how much are the consumers willing to pay? So you have 42 equals 140 minus 2p. So I'll take the 2p to this side. So 2p will equal to 140 minus 42. 2p is equal to how much? 98. 2p is equal to 98, no? 98. How do you give me 42? 140. The answer becomes different, right? 98 will become 44, right? Sorry, 49. For the ones who gave me the answer, can I check? Did I make a mistake? Can you check if the equations are correct? Can you quickly open the past paper? Dude, don't know if sometimes I type the past paper answer wrong. Question wrong. Just check if the question is correct. Is the QD equation, open your past paper book, not the tute. I might type it wrong in the tute. Is the demand equation 140 minus 2p? And is the supply equation minus 10 plus p? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So then you have the quantity supplied at price 52 will be 42. To buy 42 units, QD equation is 140 minus 2p. So then I'll move the 2p to this side, move the 42 to this side. So 2p equals 48. P is equal to, 2p equals 98. P is equal to 49. Okay. So then how much of a deficiency payment do they have to give per unit? Per unit, they have to pay a deficiency payment of 3 rupees. How much is the total they have to pay? 3 rupees into 42 units. How much is that? That's what they're asking. 3 rupees into 42, you get 126. 3 into 42, 126. So then you get answer number 2. Done. For the ones who got different numbers for that P, just check if there is anything that you all got wrong. Okay. Done. Okay. Yeah, not the cost for excess. So here they are saying deficiency payment because you have to go with the deficiency payment. It's not the cost for the government purchasing the excess supply. There you would have got a different number there. Okay, be careful. So then that's that, right? How did you all do out of all the questions? I think there were, oops, sorry. How many questions in total? 10 questions? How much out of 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. At least around a 6. But at least around a 6, I think that's a decent enough mark. Yeah, good. One more thing. I forgot to go through the cartoon for today, no? So this cartoon, what do y'all think this is? Oops, my screen went off. Give me a second. Mm, Let me load my screen back. Oh, okay. So what do you think the cartoon is about? Today there is a rocket, there is a person, there is a person holding some tea. What's the story about? Answer 2012. 2012 come now. 2012. 10th one was 4. 14th one was 1. Yeah. What's the cartoon about? Any guesses? So this story is about Lamai. Now, if you take a country like now Iran and Israel, you've seen them going into war, right? Israel started attacking, Iran is attacking back. So I think for the last 5, 6 days, or maybe a little bit more now, they have been consistently, sending missiles and launching and attacking each other. Now, what does that mean to Sri Lanka? One thing, what the cartoon says over here is Lamai, our tea. Right now, if you look at Iran, especially, I'm not sure about Israel, but if you take about Lamai tea, some of our tea, or I would say Iran is a big market for our tea lamai. They're one of our biggest export destinations for Sri Lankan tea. So that is what this cartoon is talking about. The cartoon is talking about how the Iran-Israel conflict is, crashing into our Ceylon tea market. That is what this is about. So apart from that, I think apart from the tea lamai, what do you think is the even bigger cost? What is the biggest disadvantage for Sri Lanka? One is definitely this tea exports, right? Apart from your tea exports, what do you think is the even bigger one? Exactly, the oil lamai. So if you looked at Brent crude oil prices, and I'll just give you the story. Brent crude oil prices lamai last year, the average price was lamai around $75 a barrel. So 1 barrel of crude oil was around 75. Now after Trump's tariff announcement. And after Trump came and announced his tariff, that is in April, this prices went down, Lama. It went down to around, it was around the 60 to $62. It was around there. So after Trump's tariff, prices went down. So that was Lama. It was a good thing for Sri Lanka because we import a lot of fuel. No, fuel is our biggest import in Lama. So when the prices go down, that's a big thing. Why do you think after Trump's tariffs, Lamai, why do you think prices went down? What's the econ behind this? Hmm? What's the econ behind the prices going down? Yes, you can text in the main chat, Lamai. It's very hard for me to open individual chats one by one by one. Less demand, okay, nice. So, okay, just think, Lamai, if you look at unit 2, why can the prices go down? Equilibrium price of something, how does it go down? Either the demand has to decrease or the supply has to increase. Yeah. So what happened is after Trump's tariffs, Lamai, now China is the world's biggest producer. China is the world's biggest producer, Lamai. China is the one who imports the most amount of oil. They're the biggest producer in the world. So they import so much of oil, Lamai. Now, when these tariffs came in, and especially it hit China. So when it came in and especially hit China, the demand for oil from China came down. So demand for oil from China, it started to come down because China is the biggest producer. They are the ones who produce the most amount of goods. So producing Kerala, you need electricity, you need fuel domain to produce. Now, the moment that Trump tariffs came in, Lamai, Anna, the Chinese demand side of things went down. So along with that, the supply also didn't really change, Lamai. The oil supply was not affected. Now, even though the demand went down, Actually, what happened is, Lamai, now the OPEC countries are like the Saudi Arabia and all of them. They actually started, Lamai, increasing supply. Now, who and who supplies oil in the world? You have the Gulf countries, that is mostly the OPEC ones, right? OPEC is Saudi, UAE, Qatar, and those ones. Then you also have Lamai Russia. Russia supplies oil. You have Lamai US. US also supplies oil. Now, with all of these Trump tariffs coming in, US playing the fool, Russia also in a war. You know what happened with these Trump tariffs, Lamai? Now, OPEC countries thought this is a good opportunity for them to increase their market share. Now, because Russia is also fighting in a war, US also is now busy with this Trump tariff thing. So to increase their market supply, to get more market share, OPEC countries try to increase supply now. So after the US tariffs, OPEC increased their oil supply, and along with that, China reduced their demand. So if you think of unit number two, supply increases, demand decreases, what happens to the price? The price started to come down. That's why my crude oil prices came down. Now that's a good thing for Sri Lanka because we import so much of oil, right? If our oil imports, if I'm not mistaken, is close to around $4 billion. $4 billion of oil we import every year. So then my $75 got the barrel like. Now when you're getting for $60, that's so cheap, no? So we could have got a big advantage. But now what has happened with the Iran-Israel conflict again? Now, Lamai, again oil prices have started to go up. So oil prices that were around this one, it has again gone back to around the 75 level. Because Iran is again one big oil producer. And also in this thing, Lamai, there is the, under Iran's control, there is this Strait of, it's a path, right? It's a waterway, Strait of, I can't remember the exact spellings of this. If I'm not mistaken, HORMUZ, Strait of Hormuz. You can just Google and see. In this path, that is next to Iran, there are waterways. In that path only, Lamai, around 20 to 25% of global oil goes. Global oil shipments, the total world oil shipments, around 20 to 25% of the total world's oil shipments goes through that path. So now with the country in war, there is a risk that this path might get blocked, right? Iran might, there might be Israel missile that might come and, destroy something there. So there is a risk there. So if this path gets blocked, this Strait of Hormuz, if that path gets blocked, now oil prices can go even higher. Then that would be even bad for a country like Sri Lanka. My broad assumption is I'm thinking this whole conflict will de-escalate. It'll cool down a bit. But if it gets bad, then yes, oil prices will start to go up. And then, like the cartoon says, our tea exports will also be hit. So I recently sent out a report yesterday. I sent out a, not yesterday, today. Today I sent a report on from office about these oil prices and all. It was an interesting one. That's the story there in the cartoon. Just some current context for your listing. What is in the news? Best thing is you can get away from the TV thing if you are so addicted to the TV. Okay, so shall we take a small break and then shall we get into the essay questions? Essay questions, now there are some calculations that we need to do for those type of things. There is more essay questions actually than MCQs here. So we'll work on those. Shall we take a break then and then come back? Not a very long break. You only stayed here for an hour now, no? So we'll take a break until 8:05, right? Just 5 minutes. We'll try to wrap off by 9 if possible. Okay, so take a break until 8:05 and come back. I will start off with the essay questions. Take a break. Okay, get started. All right, so starting Lama then with the essay questions for unit 3 minimum prices. So some questions I would have typed the answers itself because those questions are very easy. The others I will want some help from you. Okay, so starting with the 2012 A levels, question 2, subsection 2. Now the question says, suppose the following equations describe the demand and supply functions. Solve the equations to determine equilibrium price and quantity. That I have done for you all, Lamai. I have not done the whole working, but can you all reconfirm and let me know if these numbers are correct? Price is 6, quantity is 20. Equilibrium price and quantity, correct? Okay. Then Lamai, part 3 is asking you calculate the price elasticity of demand at equilibrium. So how do you calculate PED at equilibrium? PED is equal to your minus B component into price over QD. So how much is your minus B? That is the minus 5 here from the demand equation. So then minus 5, equilibrium price is 6, equilibrium quantity is 20. How much do we get when we simplify? Minus 1.5. Remember, I'm going to put the minus as well. Minus 1.5. And also remember, PED is not rupees or percent or anyway, just the number. So just minus 1.5. Done. Then now, the question is saying, suppose now the government introduces a guaranteed price of 8 rupees for the producers in the market. What would be the total cost of this price support scheme? So total cost of the price support scheme. Now, I'll first draw the diagram. There is the demand. You have the supply based on our initial information. We had an equilibrium price of 6, a quantity of 40. Now they're telling you government has introduced lamai a minimum price of 8 kilo, a price flow of 8. There is a minimum price or a price flow of 8. So now they're asking you, what is the cost of the price support scheme to the government? Now, price support, there are two, no? There is one is a price support government purchase, and government purchase the excess supply. The other one is lamai a deficiency payment. So now they haven't told you which one of this it is now. They haven't told you lamai, is it a price support government purchase or is it a deficiency payment? Now, how do you figure that out then? How do you know which one? Because the cost of the government will change based on what they're doing. So which one are they doing here then? Are they purchasing the excess supply or are they providing a deficiency payment? If they have just told you price support, what have I told y'all? I've told y'all if the question only says price support and they are not specifically saying, is it a government purchasing or is it a deficiency payment? Remember, if they only say price support, lamai, it is a price support government purchase, not a deficiency payment. Deficiency payment, they have to specifically mention that. So since the question is only saying price support, we will work with a price support government purchase and not a deficiency payment. Right. So they're asking, what is the cost of the government? So how do you find the cost of the government? First, you have to find the excess supply, then multiply that by 8. So can you all tell me, at price 8, how much is the quantity supplied now? Easy, your QS equation was what? QS equation was minus 10 plus 5p. So then minus 10 plus 5 into 8. So 5 into 8 is 40. 40 minus 10 is a third. Good. Then at price 8, how much is your quantity demanded? How much is that? 10. So QD is 50 minus 5p. So you get 50 minus 5 into 8. 5 into 8 is 40. 50 minus 40 is 10. Right. So then how much of an excess supply do we have? We have an excess supply of 20 units. Now this is what the government has to buy. So how much is the government's total expenditure then, Lavan? Per unit, they have promised that they will give you 8 rupees. Total excess supply of 20 units is there. So 8 into 20, total government expenditure is how much? Total government expenditure is 8 rupees per unit into 20 units. It's a total 160. Easy question. Done. Then the next part of this. Next part of this is asking Lamai, estimate the value of the consumer and the producer surplus under this guaranteed price. So I'll do it in the previous screen itself because the diagram is there. Other side, draw the diagram again. So the value of the consumer and the producer surplus. So we'll try to Lamai highlight the areas first. Which area is consumer surplus? Which area is producer surplus? So I'll use light blue for consumer surplus. So consumer surplus, you all know Lamai. Oops. Consumer surplus, you all know, is this small blue triangle, the light blue triangle on top that I'm shading. That is consumer surplus. Which area is producer surplus? producer surplus lamai is this green shaded big triangle, right? That is producer surplus. Coloring, hold on. That is producer surplus. So then now once you have the areas lamai, you can easily calculate. So, but before calculating lamai, there is a bit of missing information. What's the missing information? You need the maximum demand price, you need the minimum supply price. Can you all tell me those first? Maximum demand price and minimum supply price. The price when QD equals 0. So QD is 50 minus 5P. So when the QD is equal to 0, how much is your price? Price will be 10, no? P will be 10. How much is your minimum supply price? That is the price when QS equals 0. That is minus 10 plus 5P. When QS is 0, you get 2. Right. So now, Lama, we have all the information that we need to do our calculation. So this is 10, this is 2. Maximum demand price 10, minimum supply price 2. So now all the information is there, Lama. You just have to put the numbers and calculate. That's why, Lama, I always tell you, draw a diagram. Now, when you have a diagram, it's more easy to picture. Now, when you sometimes Lama, memorize, now some of you all have memorized the equations. No? When you memorize the equation, Lama, it's hard. Your diagram is your working. And then when you're writing the answer, now consumer surplus is the small blue triangle. So how will I write? I will say, I'll just write at the bottom here, equals half into base is 10. Height, Lama, don't say 2, say 10 minus 8. Then because you're not writing an equation, then the examiner will look at your diagram. 10 minus 8 he has taken the correct height. And now simplify. How much do we get? Half into 10 into 2. We get 10. Okay. 10. Now we have to calculate Lamai producer surplus. No, don't need to draw in a scale Lamai. These are rough diagram that you're drawing. If they Lamai paper, if they say show this equilibrium on a graph, and you have to draw it on a scale then. But a rough diagram that you're drawing, you don't have to draw on a graph, paper, scale, nothing. Just a rough diagram that you're drawing. Okay. But specifically, if the question says draw this on a diagram or draw this on a graph and show, and then that scale and graph paper is essential. Okay. Then how much is the producer surplus? So producer surplus is this green triangle. No? So half into base is 30, height is 8 minus 2. Half into 30 into 8 minus 2. Half into 30 into 8 minus 2. How much do we get? 90. Half into 30 into 6. Right. That is 90. That's all that they're asking us, no? Estimate the value of consumer producer surplus under the guaranteed price. Is there another requirement? No. See, Lama, I think a question like that, I feel if it comes in your paper, Lama, you should be jumping up and, running around the exam hall at that point. Imagine this was your actual A-level question. You have, Lama, Balanna, you have 16 marks here in this calculation. To find equilibrium price and quantity, they gave you 4 marks. To find the PED at equilibrium, they gave you 2. There is 6 marks there. To find the total cost of the government, there is 4 marks. Then total 10. And then calculate consumer and producer surplus 6 marks. Then total 16. So 16 marks came from this calculation. Out of your 20 mark essay question, Lamai, 16 marks was the calculation. Imagine that would have been like a very nice bonus, Lamai. But I doubt in your paper, they will go this much. For a 20 mark question was 16 marks. But if you get Lamai, you're the luckiest people there. But sometimes you might be unlucky also. The people who are really smart, your Z scores and all might be a little bit affected. Usually in the recent years, you would have seen Lamai calculations of maximum 8 marks, Tamai, with sub questions around maximum around 8. They haven't gone more than that. In the 20 mark question, calculation has been maximum 8. That means 12 marks of theory questions will come. Usually 4 marks, 4 marks, 4 marks, Eva, Tunak, or maybe 2 6-mark questions might be there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the easy chapters. How many marks is like this? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 you'll get 25 MCQs, but you can't do all the 5 essay questions from that because you have to only choose 3, right, from part A. So maximum if you choose 3 from part A, that is 90 marks. MCQs you get around 25, not 25. 1 to 6 is only 25. 1 to 5 must be around 22. So unit number 1 to 5, right, will give you 22 MCQs. That is 44 marks in the MCQ paper. 3 essay questions is 90 marks. That's 134 marks from unit number 1 to 5. That's the mark breakdown since someone asked. Okay, right. Going to the next one. 2015 A levels question number 3. Now they're saying you Lamai distinguish between a price floor and a price ceiling and give an example for each. Now this has to be Lamai, the format has to be in a paragraph format. So for 2 marks you explain price floor, and then for 2 marks you explain price ceiling. So what do you include? Now, what's the price floor? I've just typed some important things to include. You have to give it in price. You have to give it in a what? Paragraph format. Okay. So price flow, you can say, like, a price flow is where the government sets, right? If the government feels that the price received by the producer is unfair, they would set a price floor, or in other words, a minimum price above the equilibrium price. So as a result of this, you can say the producer's surplus might increase. There might be an excess supply that might be created in the market. You can give a small story there. For 2 marks, enough. And then give an example. Lamai. So usually minimum prices are given for farmers for like agricultural goods. So maybe minimum price for rice, minimum price for, some agriculture good. And then now you have to go into the price ceiling. So now you will say, on the other hand, a price ceiling is where if the government feels that the price paid by the consumer is too high or is unfair, they would set a price ceiling or a maximum price below the equilibrium price. So as a result of this, there might be an excess demand created. There might be a shortage of goods. Consumer surplus will increase, but producer surplus will tend to decrease. And then if you want, you can draw a diagram also, but I don't think a diagram is needed for this. And then you can give an example. It's a maximum price set for essential goods like coconut, eggs, or something like that. Price to favor the producer. Yeah, minimum price flow is favor the producer. Correct. Okay. Yeah. So that's an easy one to go with. Then going to the next one, Lamai. 2018 question number 2. 2018 question number 2 is saying, consider that the farmers who cultivate pumpkin in a certain country are having a hard time making a living selling pumpkins. The current demand and supply conditions are there. P is this, quantity demand is metric tons. Now, one more thing, Lamai. Now they are saying quantity is in metric tons now. Please don't go and try to change it into kilograms or anything. Don't do. Now, if you calculate QB and QS, you will get a number, no equilibrium quantity. Give it as metric tons itself. Some people you try to convert that into what kilograms are. Tons I have to give in kilograms. There's nothing like that. Whatever unit they have given, you can give. Right? If they have given liters, you give in liters. Don't go and convert into anything else. So then here, what is your equilibrium price and quantity? I have done that calculation for you. Can someone reconfirm if the numbers are right? Equilibrium price is 26. Equilibrium quantity is 90 metric tons. Don't go and convert that into kilograms. Okay, right. Then part B, C, D, E. Now this is where the minimum price story comes. They're saying, suppose the government decides to help the farmers by implementing a deficiency payment scheme. Under this scheme, the government will guarantee that the farmers will receive 30. And just ask the farmers that they sell all their pumpkins at what price they can get from the market. How much pumpkins will the farmers supply to the market now? Easy. At the price of 30, how much will they supply? That's what they're asking. So I'll just draw a diagram. If you draw your diagram, right now we have your demand curve. We have the supply curve. So right now, Lamai, equilibrium price is 26. Quantity was 90. So now government has come and set a minimum price of 30. The first question, that is part B, is asking, at this price, how many units will the farmers supply? So how much will the farmers supply? QS is equal to minus 40 plus 5P. So QS is equal to minus 40 plus 5 into P is 13. 5 into 30. How much do we get? 110. So then you can say 110 and also say don't say 110 units. Better for you to say 110 metric tons. They are saying all in metric ton scale. So you can say 110 metric ton. That is how much they will supply. So I'll complete my diagram. Farmers will supply 110, right? That is part B. Now part C is asking, what price do farmers need to charge in order to sell their entire supply? In other words, to buy these 110 units, what is the price Lamai the consumer will be willing to pay? That's what they're asking. To buy 110 units, how much will the consumer be willing to pay? So then, same thing we did before Lamai. Our QD is 350 minus 10p. QD equals 350 minus 10p. So for your QD to be 110, what should be your price? That's what they're asking. So what should be the price? 350 minus 10p. 10p equals 350 minus 110. That is 240. P is equal to 24. Done. Anna, you have calculated that as well. So you can say farmers will have to pay 24, charge 24 to sell the entire supply. Then part D. Part D is saying, how much will the farmers receive from the government as deficiency payment? Now here, are they asking per unit or are they asking in total? We don't know, no? So write both. So how much will they receive per unit? Government has promised a minimum price of 30. These people will have to sell it at 24 to sell the entire supply. So per unit they will receive how much? Per unit they will get 6 rupees. Then in total, how much will they receive? Give both, Lamai. Whatever the marking scheme says, you will get your marks, then nothing wrong. So you can say per ton, right? Per ton, they will get per ton. We can say per unit, they will get 6. So in total, how much will they get? 6 into 110. That is a rupees 606. That's what they will get. Done. This part is what they asked. Then part E is asking Lamai, calculate consumer and producer surplus after the introduction of the deficiency payment. Right. Now deficiency payment Lamai, which area is consumer surplus? I'll again use the light blue here. Consumer surplus is Lamai, this blue area. No. Now consumer pays only 24 rupees. No. He pays 24, buys 110 units. Remember, in deficiency payment, consumer surplus also increases. So can you all Lamai, we'll first calculate that before we go to produce surplus. Can you all tell me how much is the maximum demand price? The price here, price when QD equals 0. So QD is 350 minus 10p. If the QD is 0, you all do the working. Now you all know QD is 35. Right. Maximum demand price is 35. Okay. So then I'll put it over here. I don't have a lot of space. So I'll write it on top here. E. So consumer surplus will be half into base is 110. Height is 35 minus 24. How much do we get? So I'm not going to simplify it for you. Can you all give me the number? 605. Good. Paste 605. Okay, now producer surplus. Producer surplus is which area? Producer surplus is this green shaded area now. It can overlap. Consumer surplus, producer surplus can overlap. No problem at all. Producer surplus is the green shaded triangle. So for that, you need the minimum supply price. Can you all tell me the number there? How much do we get? Price when QS equals 0. 8. Okay. Guys, I'm hoping by now you all know how to find these. So I'm not finding those minimum supply price and all. That is 8. Okay. Then we'll write produce surplus. I'll write it here itself on top. Produce surplus half into base is 110. Height is 30 minus 8. So then you simplify, how much do we get? 1210. 1210. And your final answer. Calculate consumer and produce surplus after the introduction. Again, I feel a very easy question now. Now, even in this question, you had 2 marks here for equilibrium price and quantity. And you had how much? 4, 6, 8, 12 marks. It's a total 12 mark question just to calculate a few things. If you know the calculation, what I personally feel is calculation is like the free marks there. Right? That's the best thing. Yes, US is Sri Lanka's largest export market. Sorry, I missed that message. Yeah. Okay. Do you get all of that right? 2018? Yes. Good. Feels good. Nothing. No. Do you all feel this is too easy? This fellow is too slow? If that is what you're feeling, you're at a very good level. Hmm. Okay. Then coming to 2020. Now, 2020 part 1 was the same question as before Lamai. So I've just put the question. 2015 question number 2, part 3. Same question repeated. Distinguish between price flow and price yield. So you can give examples even though they're not asking. Give example itself and distinguish. Then going to the next one. Right. Now this one, Lamai, can you all please make a note? The answer in the marking scheme. Now they're asking, Lamai, here they're asking you for dead weight loss. In the marking scheme, okay, don't write points now. I would prefer a paragraph format kind of a thing. So one paragraph about a price ceiling, give an example. One paragraph about a price flow, give an example. I feel that format is better. Okay, right. Now this question, listen carefully. Okay, the answer in your marking scheme, the answer might be correct, Lamai. The approach you take is different now. Please note that. This is a 2020 paper. From 2022 onwards, from 2022 onwards, 22 onwards, Lamai, how you calculate, right? The dead weight loss calculation, the approach has changed. Now, this is an old paper. So if you refer to the marking scheme, Lamai, they will have the old approach of doing it. So I'm not going to teach you the old approach. I'm going to teach you the new approach. Now you might have this some people, you might not listen, you might go and do something, and then later you will come and ask me, so marking scheme says something like this. No, sir, why did you say something like this? So I'm repeating, marking scheme has the old approach. I'm teaching you the new one. My old YouTube videos, some people now, I have done the past paper class for the previous batches also and put on YouTube. Some people watch that. They think they don't have to come to this live class. We'll watch that. In that Lamai, the old approach is only there. Okay, I'm going to teach you the new one now. Okay, listen. So they are saying a competitive market has a demand function given by the equation QD equals 180 minus 2P, supply function minus 15 plus P. Calculate the amount of deadweight loss. Now, in the old approach, Lamai, to calculate deadweight loss, you calculated consumer surplus, produce surplus, got economic surplus, got the change in economic surplus. That's how you calculate it. New approach, you don't have to do all of that. You can simply calculate the area of the triangle. And in the new approach for dead weight loss, they will most likely not give you a 8-mark question. Okay. So I will want some numbers from you. You will have to help me with this. Okay. Now, based on this, can you all tell me how much is my equilibrium price and quantity? How much do you get? Initial before this minimum price and all of this. Equilibrium price 65, quantity 50. 50 or 123? Some are saying 50, some are saying 123. What about if the equilibrium price is 65, 2 instead of 130 has to be 50, no? Yeah, right. So equilibrium price is 65, quantity is 50. Right. Supply, demand, price axis, quantity axis. Okay. Now what has happened? The government has come Lamai and put a minimum price of 72. Government has come, minimum price of 72. So at this minimum price of 72, can you all tell me, Lamai, how many units will the producers now supply? At 72, how much is the quantity supplied? So take the QSC equation, minus 15 plus for prices, you are to put 72. How much do we get? 57. Suppliers will supply Lamai 57 units. Now you all know Lamai dead weight loss is this triangle here. Right? There is remember I explained Lamai. This is the supply curve represents the marginal cost curve. Demand curve represents the marginal benefit curve. Because of this minimum price, there is an overproduction that is happening. That overproduction means there is an inefficiency, allocative inefficiency. The gap between the marginal cost and the marginal benefit curve is your deadweight loss. I would have explained that when we did taxes and all. If you missed it, Poddak Gila watch. So then you can now directly find the area of this yellow triangle. Can you all tell me now, like in deficiency payment, when you all do Lamai, to buy 57 units, you have to need the price here, and others you can't calculate the area of the triangle. To buy 57 units, Lamai, what is the price consumers are willing to pay? So QD is equal to 180 minus 2P. When the QD is 57, what is the price? That is what I'm asking you. What's the price? Oh, sorry. Calculate the amount of... Yeah. Sorry. I missed the point. I was thinking of deficiency payment. No. Wait. Yes, this... Yeah. Right. I'll come back to my point. So this is, Lamai, we didn't read the question. So this is where the government is imposing a price floor. But have they told you, Lamai, about a price support system here? Have they talked about government coming and purchasing the excess supply? Have they talked about something like a deficiency payment? Is there anything like that in this question? Read. There's nothing like that. No, sorry. I didn't read the question fully. So I'll come back. Now, in this question, equilibrium price is 65, quantity is 50. Government has come and set a minimum price of 72. So government has set a minimum price of 72 and the question doesn't say anything else. They don't talk about, Lamai, a price support. They don't talk about government purchasing the excess supply. They don't talk about any deficiency payment. That means the government has only set the minimum price. So if they have only set the minimum price, Lamai, the market quantity will remain at this point. Yeah. Even though suppliers are willing to supply, you all told me, even though suppliers are willing to supply, Lamai, 57 units. Can you all tell me at price 72, how much are consumers willing to buy? At price 72, QD is 36. So even though my suppliers are willing to supply 57, if consumers are willing to buy only 36, how many units will actually be supplied in the market? Will the suppliers go and supply their entire 57? If people are willing to buy only 36, if they supply 57 lamai, they make a huge loss. So therefore, what do producers do? The producers will lamai stop their supply. They will stop their supply at 36 units. So this is the quantity bought and sold. Even though they are willing to supply 56, 57, they will only supply lamai 36. Now that is your quantity produced. You have to ideally be producing how much? You have to ideally be producing 50. So the gap between your marginal cost and now is there an underproduction or overproduction here, Lamai? Tell me that. Ideal equilibrium is saying 50. That is the allocatively efficient level of output. But because the government is coming and providing this minimum price at 72, they're not further intervening. There is a what? There is an underproduction in the market. There is an underproduction. So as a result, now what do you have? There is an underproduction in the market and there is an inefficiency cost. What is the area of that inefficiency? That is your deadweight loss, Lamai. The gap between between 36 and 50. Look at the gap between your marginal cost and marginal benefit curve. So this yellow shaded one, that becomes your deadweight loss. So to find this area, Lamai, you need one more piece of information. What do you need? You need, when the supply is 36, what is the price? At what price will the supplier supply 36 units? So take your QSC equation. QSC equals minus 15 plus 72. Minus 15 plus P. So for your when your QS is 36, how much is your price? That is what I'm asking you. 51. Price is equal to 50. Right. I found that as well. So I found the missing information. Now what do I need, Lamai? I can directly calculate the area of the triangle. Now, deadweight loss, you don't have to go and calculate change in consumer surplus. You look at the marking scheme, there will be things like that. Change in consumer surplus, change in producer surplus, all of that will be there. But now you don't have to do that. You can directly calculate the area of this triangle. So how much is the area of this triangle then? The answer would be the same though. So how much do you all get? Deadweight loss, half into base is 50 minus 36. Height is 72 minus 51. How much do we get then? Half into 14 into 21. How much is that? 147. Right. That's your dead weight loss. Is that okay? Fine. How you get dead weight loss? Simply calculate the area of the triangle. No, government is not purchasing the excess supply line. I also missed that point. How do you know which triangle is dead weight loss? That's where you have to compare, right? That's where the logic behind this comes. So you need to compare the equilibrium level of output with the actual amount that is bought and sold now. So how much is the equilibrium? Equilibrium is your allocatively efficient level of output, and how many units are produced now. That is, then you can figure out whether there's overproduction or underproduction. And then in that gap, I think you would have missed the whole tax part of it and all, where I showed you the logic. Or if you have my theory class recordings, please go back to that. In that, now here, your allocatively efficient level of output is 50. This is what you want to ideally produce, where your marginal cost equals marginal benefit. But you're producing only 36. That's why I said there is an underproduction in the market. So that means you're not allocating enough resources. You have to allocate resources to produce 50, but you're allocating to produce only 36. There's an inefficiency in resource allocation. That inefficiency is what you call your dead weight loss. So what is the area of your dead weight loss? Between that 36 and 50, look at the gap between your marginal cost and marginal benefit. So the gap between your marginal cost and marginal benefit is this red color shaded triangle. That's how that triangle comes. Now, if the government has purchased the excess supply, or if they provided, let's say, a deficiency payment, then the quantity sold in the market would have been 57. That's what I was explaining before, because I didn't read the full question. If there is an excess supply purchase, then this blue shaded triangle would have been your dead weight loss, because then the quantity supplied is 57. There is an overproduction in the market. That would have been dead weight loss. But here, government is only setting a minimum price. They are not purchasing the excess supply. They are not providing a deficiency payment. They're just setting the minimum price only. So then quantity comes down to 36, and that's where the dead weight loss comes. So remember, Lamai, now when you get a minimum price question, now this is a good thing for you all to remember. When you get a minimum price question, remember there are 3 variations. So minimum price as Lamai, right? You can get just a minimum price. That is this 2020 question. 2020 level question, that is this. The government is just setting a minimum price. They are not intervening further. Another thing that you can get is, Lamai, government provides a minimum price and they purchase the excess supply. Purchase the excess supply. We did a question like that also. That is the question in this one. Not this one. 2018 was a deficiency payment. This one. They purchased the excess supply. Right? 2012 question. Okay, minimum price and government purchased the excess supply. That is 2012 A levels. Then the third variation you can get is, Lamai, a minimum price plus a deficiency payment. That is what you got, Lamai, in 2018. So these are 3 different calculations. One is just a minimum price. One is a minimum price with a price support government purchase. The other one is a minimum price with a deficiency payment. So you need to, these 2 and 3 are called guaranteed prices as well, because the government is further intervening with some sort of a thing. That's a minimum price. To find the missing figure, if the minimum price, we should use QS equation and define that. Yeah, QS or the QD equation, whatever that matches with your graph. No, maximum price, not much variation. Maximum price, there is only one variation. minimum prices, there are 3 different variations. So be very careful with that. Okay, done. Right. Then we come to the 2021 question. Now, Silama, which variation is this? Suppose the government is this thing. Government has a price support program, right? Government is purchasing the excess supply. From my variations, Lama, which one is this? First one, second one, or third one? The 2021 paper. Is it just a minimum price? No. It's a minimum price where the government purchases the excess. The 2021 paper is also this. We'll see any other paper. 2021 was it 22? No, 22 is this one. What is this? 2023, 1 year before. Introduce a minimum price. What is the excess supply? What are they doing here? Price support, no? So price support, excess supply. Here also they are purchasing the excess supply. They haven't said no. And I told you when they just say price support and when they have not mentioned whether it's purchasing or deficiency, it's always purchasing. This is something like that, like the 2012 paper one. So this is also this. So 2021 and also 2023. So 23 is also this variation. So this all 2012, 21, 23 are all minimum prices with the government purchasing the excess supply. Okay, so we'll go to the question. Now, I want you all to give me answers also faster. So the question says, suppose the government has offered onion farmers a price support of 100 per kilogram and the excess supply is purchased by the government. Market demand and supply equations are there. How much does the price support cost the government? How much is the consumer and producer plus calculate the deadweight loss. Okay, so we'll do all of it in the new method. I'll draw the diagram. Can you all first tell me now how much is the equilibrium price and quantity? You just label that and keep for our diagram. That's easy. How much is my equilibrium price? How much is my equilibrium quantity in this question? 90 and 60. Okay, so equilibrium price is 90. Equilibrium quantity is 60. Okay. So what is the government doing? They are setting a minimum price of 100. So when the government comes and sets a minimum price of 100, first thing they're asking you is what is the price for cost for the government to purchase this excess supply. So can you all tell me at 100 rupees, how many units are supplied? Put that to the QS equation. So QS is equal to minus 210 plus 3P. So 3 into 100. How much is supplied? 90 units. Okay. Then at price 100, how much is the quantity demanded? QD equals 240 minus 2P. That means 2 into 100. How much is that? That is a 40. Okay. So then how much of an excess supply do we have, Laman? Our excess supply we have is a 50 units. So government has to buy this entire excess supply at the price of 100. So what's the cost to the government then? Cost to the government is 50 into 100 or 500, right? So that's part A. So I'll just write the answer here. 50 into 100 rupees per unit. Total they have to spend of 500, right? That. Then part B is asking, what is the amount of consumer and produce surplus? So if the government buys the excess supply, Lamai, consumer surplus is still this small triangle, small blue triangle, right? Which area is the producer surplus? Producer surplus is this big green triangle. Yeah. So can you all tell me how much is the maximum demand price and the minimum supply price? Give me those two information. Sorry, 5,000, no? 50, 5,000, sorry. How much is that? Maximum demand price, 120. Okay. Maximum demand price, 120. Minimum supply price, 70. Yes, part A answer is not 500, it's 5,000, no? 50 into 100. Okay. Right. So we've got the maximum demand price, we've got the minimum supply price. Now just find Lamai. Simple as that. So part B, consumer surplus is half into, oops, half into base is 40, height is 120 minus 100. How much do we get? 400. Okay, good. Then how much is the producer surplus? Half into base is 90, height is 100 minus 70. That is 1003. Right. That's all. Amount of consumer and produce surplus. If they ask economic surplus, I add the two. Remember, now the new method for economic surplus is simply consumer and producer. Don't go and adjust for any government anything. Then the last one, calculate deadweight loss. Now, which area is deadweight loss here? Now, this is your supply curve, represents your marginal cost. This is your demand curve, represents your marginal benefit. So this yellow dot here, this 60 is your allocatively efficient level of output. But because the government is coming and providing this minimum price and purchasing the excess supply, how many units are produced now, Lava? Is it 40, 60 or 90? How many units are produced now? Because of this whole government purchasing excess supply, now 90 units are produced. So is there overproduction or underproduction? You have to be producing only 60. That is the allocatively efficient level. But you're producing 90. There is an inefficiency there. The area of that inefficiency is your deadweight loss. What is the area of that inefficiency? Here, the gap between your marginal cost and marginal benefit. So between the 60 and the 90, the red shaded triangle, that is your deadweight loss. You don't have to get any change in consume, produce, nothing like that. So can you tell me, Lamai, one more thing you have to find. To buy 90 units, what is the price the consumers are willing to pay? Others, you can't get the thing. How much is that? To buy 90 units, I'll put that over here. Part C. So first we'll calculate QD equals 240 minus 2P. For the QD to become 90, what should be the price? That's what I'm asking you. 75, right? So 240 minus 2P, you all can simplify, P equals 75 price. Then I know this is 75. So now I can find the area of this triangle. So I'll just write it over here. Balan, area of this triangle. Okay, zoom out a bit. Okay. So we are trying to find the area of this red triangle. I'll explain deadweight loss again. Give me a second. So area of this triangle for deadweight loss, half into base is 90 minus 60. Right, those are because you're not giving a equation. Height is 100 minus 75. So when I simplify, I get half into 30 into 25. How much do we get? 375. Once again, why is that area the deadweight loss? Remember, the new way of deadweight loss I would have taught you all when it comes to in the theory class. If you all have my recordings or even any of my recording where I teach the story, you would have come across. I think I taught you all this in taxes also. So deadweight loss is the inefficiency caused by not producing the allocatively efficient level of output. Remember, in unit 1, we learned something called allocative efficiency. Condition for allocative efficiency is where marginal cost equals marginal benefit. So your supply curve represents marginal cost. Your demand curve represents marginal benefit. So where the two curves cut, in other words, your equilibrium quantity is what you call your allocatively efficient level of output. That is where MC equals MB, demand equals supply. So ideally in this one, our allocatively efficient level of output is 60 units. So that is what we have to ideally be producing. People are saying we want 60. Allocatively efficient level of output is 60 units. But how much are we producing now? because the government is coming and putting this minimum price and they are purchasing the excess supply, we are not producing 60, we are producing 90. We are producing more than the allocatively efficient level of output. We are overproducing here. There is an overproduction that is happening in the market. A overproduction of how much? A overproduction of 30 units. Produce karanna on 60, only 60. But we are producing how much? We are producing 90. We are producing 30 more. So there is you're using resources more than what is required. You have to allocate resources to produce only 60 units. But you have allocated resources to produce 90 units. There's an overproduction of 30. That leads to an inefficiency. That inefficiency is what you call deadweight loss. How do you find that deadweight loss area, Lamai? At that overproduction level, you have to look at the gap between the marginal cost and the marginal benefit. So focus on only this level. Focus on this yellow shaded area here between the 60 to 90, that narrow stretch. In that narrow 60 to 90 gap, look at the difference between marginal cost and marginal benefit. In that narrow shaded gap, this blue one here, what I'm trying to draw here, I'll put that in white, right? This white, light blue, whitish like one, that is your marginal cost, okay, in that overproduction area. In that overproduction area, I'll put this in light green. This is your marginal benefit. The gap between your marginal benefit and marginal cost, that is how long that area becomes a deadweight loss. That's the story there. Okay. Deadweight loss, social welfare loss definitely are two different concepts. If you have my theory recordings or something, you can go back to that. If they ask to calculate deadweight loss, do we need to explain? You can show a bit, you can talk a little bit about the overproduction. You can say, you know, that's causing an inefficiency. The area of the inefficiency is this. So instead of just giving some numbers, you can give some distance. No. Deadweight loss, finding the difference between economic surplus and all, that is the old method. You don't do that anymore. The difference between consumer economic surplus and all of it, you will use that for social welfare loss now, not for deadweight loss. This change happened multiple years ago from my theory class, revision class, to everything I have been doing. I hope your teachers also have been doing that. Okay. So deadweight loss is that overproduction inefficiency, not the change in consumer, change in produce surplus. You can't do it that way anymore. Okay. Okay. Right. Is that okay then? Fine. 2021, question number 3. Deadweight loss and loss of no, not the same. So change in, these are three different things, Lamai. Deadweight loss, social welfare loss, change in economic surplus are three different things. They're not the same. Deadweight loss, where you have to look at the overproduction, underproduction, that thing, right? Underproduction, and you get the inefficiency. Social welfare loss, you get the change in consumer surplus, look at the change in producer surplus, and also look at how the government is impacted, how the government gets impacted. Okay. And then change in economic surplus is you calculate economic surplus before and after and compare and see. All approach to calculate deadweight loss, they will not allocate marks anymore. In the 2022 paper, they clearly made a note, If you see the 2022 paper, they clearly made a note saying this is not how deadweight loss is now calculated. Teachers have taught this wrong. In the 22 paper, they gave an alternative answer. They accepted the old method also, but they said hereafter we will not accept that. So after that, it will not be there. Know the new methods. The new methods, probably your teachers would have taught this change didn't happen last year, it happened in 2022. In the 2022 A-level paper marking scheme, that change happened. That is where the change was first officially announced. So then from the 2022, when the marking scheme came out for 2023 batch, we have finished teaching. Now that's what was there in my YouTube channel. In my YouTube channel, some of you are watching some old videos. That is the recordings I did for the 2023 batch. What is there until the 2022 paper? That's for 2023 batch. So by the time that marking scheme came, my 2023 batch, I have done that and finished. So then for them, I have taught the old method. The 24 batches past paper recordings, I didn't put on YouTube. Now for y'all, I'm doing it. I'm putting a few on YouTube. So this is where the new one is there. If you were there in my theory class or something, I would have taught you the new method. Theory or revision, no fast track or anything. The new methods might be there. Okay. Your teachers would have learned. I'm not saying just me. All the other teachers also would have made this change. Just go and check. Okay. Right. Then coming into 2022. Okay. 22 Lamai is giving you a bit of a theory kind of a question. They are saying, if a price flow benefits producers, why does a price flow reduce economic surplus? Explain your answer using a diagram. So how do you do this, Lamai? Now, Lamai, this one, is this price flow from your three situations? Which situation do you have to explain? Is it just a minimum price? Is it a minimum price with government purchasing the excess supply? Is it a minimum price with a deficiency payment? I know it's a theory question, but which one will you take to explain this, Lamai, when you're drawing the diagram and all? Is it the first, second, or the third? The first one, Lamai. They are not talking about any price support here. They're just saying government is putting a price flow. That's it. There is nothing price support, no word mentioned. So this is just a price flow, the first approach. And then if a price flow benefits the producers, why does it reduce economic surplus? So you have to show, Lamai, you have to show how it benefits the producer. In other words, so I have typed the answer in the marking scheme, how the price received by the producer, right? Price received by the producer increases, how the producer surplus increases. So you have to first explain that. Why does it benefit the producer? But then you need to talk about why is it a loss for the overall economy? So I'll show you. Now, if you look at the diagram, you take this. Okay, this is your this is this. This is initial equilibrium price and quantity. Government comes and sets a minimum price. And then now what happens? Quantity becomes only this. So if you look at this, earlier Lamai, A, B, and C are consumer surplus earlier. And then I'll keep this one. D and E are producer surplus. That is before. Now what happens? So I'll just write that down. You can give this, you have to draw a diagram and explain now. Consumer surplus before is A, B, C. Producer surplus before is D and E. Right? Now, what happens after this minimum price? Producer surplus now the quantity gets limited to this lower level. You all know that story. Now, the producer's consumer surplus becomes A, producer surplus becomes D and B. Producer loses E but gets B. So usually the area of B is bigger than the area of E. That is why producer surplus increases, but consumer surplus comes down. So overall, what would have happened to economic surplus? Economic surplus earlier was A, B, C, D, E. Right? Before it was A, B, C, D, E. Now it is only A, B, D. So then producer surplus has also come, economic surplus has also come down. So that's what you have to put some letters and you have to explain, Lavai. You have to show, you have to prove that why does it benefit the producer? So you can say now the producer gets a higher price. So as a result, now producer surplus increases to BD. But then why is it overall reducing your economic surplus? Now, earlier consumer surplus falls and overall economic surplus was earlier A, B, C, D, E. Now it is only A, B, D. So you have to explain. So it's not a hard one, Lamai. It's just that you need to learn how to write an answer for this. So some words from the marking scheme I have typed over here. The diagram I have drawn. So they're also saying explain using a diagram. So for drawing this diagram and showing all of this, the remaining 2 marks will be given. So you have 2 marks for this explanation, 2 marks for this, 2 marks for drawing the diagram and showing how economic surplus came down. So these are not hard. You just need to learn how to write and practice. Now, the same question, Lama, they can turn and give. They can talk about a tax, they can talk about a subsidy, they can talk about a maximum price, they can talk about a minimum price with government purchase, minimum price with deficiency payment. They can give you a theory question like this. Remember your question number 3, right? This A-level question number 3 in the recent papers, my calculations are only for 8 marks. Huh? Calculations are only for 8 marks. That means there is another 12 marks of theory questions like this coming in your unit 3 question. So if you're only good with calculations, now calculations පුළුවන්, but theory back and the 12 marks you're losing that. So make sure you're good with your theory as well. Okay, right. That is done then. We'll go to the next. So this is the last question that we have, and then we can wrap off. So give me answers. Current purchase is there, then can we say deadweight loss because there's deadweight loss is not because there's cost to the government now. Deadweight loss is because either there is an overproduction or underproduction. That's where the deadweight loss comes. So even if there is a price support, it's not because there is a cost to the government, it's because there is an overproduction happening. Okay, right. Coming back to this, the last one, 2023 question number 3, part 1. Assume that the market demand is 120 minus 0.5p on a decimal level, and the supply is minus 30 plus p. What is the market equilibrium price and quantity? Can you all give me the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity? How much? Price is 100, quantity is 70. Yeah. So price is 100, quantity is 70 units. Okay. Then part B is saying, suppose the government decided to introduce a price support program, which a price flow of 120 is put. What is the excess supply? Same, Nilamai. So draw the diagram now. Draw your diagram and see. So you have your demand curve, you have your supply curve. Initial equilibrium price is 100, quantity is 70. Government sets a minimum price of 120. How much is the excess supply? So can you all tell me, Lamai, at 120, how much is the quantity supply? Now I'm not going to give the workings and all, you all can calculate. Put 120 to QS equation and find the QS. You get 90. Okay, so quantity supplied is 90. How much is the quantity demanded at 120? You get 60, right? Easy. So then how much of an excess supply do we have? That's what they're asking. Part B. Excess supply would be 90 minus 60. You have a 30 units of an excess supply. Done. Then part C is asking what is the total cost to the government. So the cost to the government, remember, price support, they are purchasing the excess supply. Yeah. So then how much is the cost to the government? They have to buy 30 units. Each unit they have to buy at 120 rupees. So total cost is this yellow shaded area. So how much is that? 30 into 120, you get 3,600. And then you have the last one, calculate the deadweight loss. Remember how you calculate the deadweight loss? Now deadweight loss, again, you will look at whether it's an overproduction or under. Now I'll show you the actual marking scheme for 2023. Okay, then you will see how they calculate. First, we'll do the calculation. So you all tell me, is there an overproduction or underproduction here? This is your marginal cost. This is your marginal benefit. You have to ideally be producing 70. But because the government is intervening and purchasing the excess supply, now you're producing 90. So there is a overproduction. As a result, there is an inefficiency. What is the area of that inefficiency? The gap between the marginal cost and marginal benefit. Under this is your deadweight loss. Right? This red shaded one. Now for this, you need one more piece of information, that is this. To buy 90 units, what is the price consumers are willing to pay? Can you all tell me that? Take the QD equation. At when the QD is 90, what is the price? How much is the price? 60? Okay. So then this is 60. So then can you all calculate my deadweight loss for me? Half into base is 90 minus 70. Height is 120 minus 60. Oh, yeah, sorry. Someone asked me whether you have to write equations. If you give a diagram, you don't have to write equations. If you give a proper diagram, show the working like this within brackets and all, you don't have to give an equation. How much do we get? 600 half into 20 into 60. 600. Right. Give me 1 second. So that is your last answer there. Now you have to show the workings. I have skipped a lot of workings here. Let me show you, Lamai, the actual 2023 marking scheme and how deadweight loss was calculated and how this 4 marks was given. Look, now, because still some of you all think you have to get the change in consumer, change in producer surplus. I told you from 2022 that changed. Okay, so look at the 2023 marking scheme. Give me a second. Let me share this. Give me 1 second. I have to open the past paper. 2023 question paper and the answers. I have the, sorry, I think this is not the original marking scheme. I have the original marking scheme also. I'll send you all a picture. We'll see. I think this one also will have that. 2023. Okay. You see them how they have calculated. Look at this. Look at this part D in this one. Okay. I'll just read the answer word by word by word. Okay. They are saying deadweight loss represents the loss of economic efficiency. I told you allocative efficiency, loss of economic efficiency due to the price support. It can be calculated as the area of the triangle formed between the demand and supply curves. Remember, demand is the marginal benefit, supply is the marginal cost. The area between the demand and supply, between that marginal cost, marginal benefit is your deadweight loss. Okay. Covering inefficient quantity of output. So here, within brackets, they are saying, Lama, there is an overproduction. That's what I also told you. You have to be producing 70, but you have produced 90. There is an overproduction. So here, how much of an overproduction? Overproduction of 20 units. You have to produce 70, you are producing 90. See, to calculate the deadweight loss, half into the inefficient quantity of output. That is your base, no? That is 20 multiplied by what? Multiplied by that height, right? The difference between the marginal cost and the marginal benefit. What is that height? That height is the 120 minus the 60. See, multiplied by marginal cost of quantity supplied at floor price minus marginal benefit. That's the height, 120 minus 60. So then half into 20 into this, that's how you get the 600 level. That's exactly what I'm saying as well. So remember, now here, did they, if did they go and calculate consumer surplus, producer surplus, anything like that? Nothing. So now the new way of getting deadweight loss is, you have to compare the overproduction or underproduction, get that difference and get it. You don't now. Earlier method, in my past papers and all, I would have talked about, right? Where you go and get the consumer surplus change, economic surplus change and all, and then calculate. You don't do that anymore. Do you have to explain? You have to give some sort of explanation, because this is a 4-mark calculation. So for a 4-mark thing, just giving the equation and putting this will not be enough. I'll say at 20, don't worry. Just giving the equation will not be enough, You will have to give this. I'll send you a picture of the original marking scheme, right? This is not the original marking scheme. This is a past paper book type 1. The original marking scheme of the 2023, just after this class is over, I'll take a picture from my phone. I have the printed version of it. I will send you a picture. So see how the marks are broken. So you have to give some level of explanation. You have to say, look here, this is the amount of overproduction, right? That leads to inefficiency. At this point, this is the marginal benefit. This is the marginal cost. So you need to have like a small diagram there. You can label it. Diagram, you can use the same one. And then you have to calculate and show. That's how you will get it. I will show the original marking scheme as well. Okay. If you draw the diagram and solve the sum, should we still have a bit of definition is needed, because since they're asking you for what is deadweight loss to calculate, you have to say this is what deadweight loss is. This is the triangle. Then this is the area of that. So don't take shortcuts. You have to draw the diagram, The diagram is anyway needed for your previous parts. Without the diagram, you can't. Otherwise, you have to write equations. If you're not writing equations, you have to have a diagram. And diagram, don't draw it in a cutaway college, draw it in your proper A-level paper. In your actual A-level paper, these diagrams that I draw for every question, It has to be there in your A-level paper that you submit to the examiner. Don't draw it in rough paper and just throw it off and your LL paper has nothing. Because otherwise, you all don't get workings. Now, don't worry and also one more thing, for all of y'all, you can be a part of this from August onwards, not July, August onwards, but there will be limited slots. I will check and let you know. From August onwards, I will start my mock exam series. In the mock exam series, every week we'll do 2 full papers. One of my papers, one full pass paper. So all the papers will be marked and given, right? You will get feedback where you are missing marks, which answers you're going wrong. So every week we'll be keeping on doing 2 full papers. So then the more and more papers you do, so until A levels, we'll be doing around 16 to 20 papers. So then you will figure out once you do 20 papers and go my 20 full papers are paper one's paper two's dekama, right? So 100 mark 20 papers, every paper gets marked. Then you will see where your marks are and all of it, and then easily you can get it done. So some of y'all have that problem now. You all know the thing. There will be my papers, right? So every week 2 papers can, one is my paper, one is a past paper. So my paper, past paper, my paper, past paper, my paper, past paper. So you'll do 20 papers like that, and then you will improve your answer writing a lot. You will see where and where you are losing marks, right? What and what is happening, all of that will happen. That's just to keep in mind. In August, fast track people, you all will continue the same thing. New people who are joining, if there are slots, I will let you know. Right now, fast track, all the slots are taken. All 350 slots are over. If there are slots, I will let you know. No, if you pay the full fee of the fast track, mock exam is also included. Don't worry. Okay, so that we'll talk about later, fees and all. Right, let me share my screen again. Now you all wanted me to share the screen. Hold on. Okay, so that is the minimum price story that we have, Lamai. So with that, your unit 3 is done. So then we need to move into unit number 4. So unit number 4, we can move into from next class onwards. In unit number 4, I will send you all the past papers over the weekend, right? Over the weekend, I will send you the past papers and we'll do with that. Mocking saying like the fast track video paper and it will be discussed. It will be discussed. It will be discussed on that day itself. Yes. Right. I'll show you how with the papers work when we do. Mock exam series will start in August. So you have to, that's mock exams are full papers. These are not small papers. It's full papers there. Right. So with that, we'll call it off and we'll get that done. And if you all have questions, please do stay and clarify. See you all. Bye-bye.